IVM.
Welcome to Think Fast, or as we call it, weekly updates on who has MyGlam acquired this week or tied up with and everything else. This is a podcast where we talk about business, startups, marketing, and pretty much anything that me and Suchita find fun or interesting if you are in this space. And I don't know why I'm talking this tone. How has your week been, Suchita? What have you been up to?
My week's been good, man. Last 2 weeks of the year, it's hectic as one would imagine because I think everyone wants to just take the last week of December off. I had a very interesting experience on this new app called Friend, FRND, which I will tell our dear listeners about perhaps in the next episode. But how's your week been, man? Are you all set to call out 2021 once and for all?
Yes, I have. I think I had a great start of the week. I watched Spider-Man. I'm so excited. I was so happy. I was like, I have not seen a movie where I have gone like, oh my God, throughout the movie. Like entire, 2.5 hours, that was me. That was me like sitting I was edge of my seat and telling that one irritating kid in front saying, sit down. Because there was a kid in front who refused to sit down. He kept standing up.
I still haven't entered a movie hall though. I very reluctantly go to restaurants. Theaters, no chance. Like not
I've actually
happening.
done I think I don't know, 3-4 movies now this year in the theater. I've actually been at it. Yes. But what else has been happening? What's been happening in the non-Spider-Verse?
Oh man, in the non-metaverse, non-Spider-Verse, but on Twitterverse, there's a bunch of really cool things that have gone down. One quick commerce, which has been our hot topic for the past couple of episodes. Our beloved Stanford dropouts, by the way, have raised a whopping $100 million. And by Stanford dropouts, dear listeners, I'm referring to Zepto, which is a 10-minute delivery service. Good Glam, as you rightly said, has acquired yet another brand this week. They have acquired a majority stake or significant stake or invested in Sirona, which is a women's hygiene brand. Purple has acquired Faces Canada. CultFit goes hardware in its continued acquisitions of bikes and treadmill, companies like RPM, FitKit, and earlier this year they acquired this company called Tread. So lots happening in the M&A space. What's been on your radar?
Very interestingly, TikTok is getting into the restaurant business. It's quite interesting. I mean, obviously we are in the non-TikTok verse because we don't have TikTok in India, but they're getting into restaurant business in the States. It's interesting because a lot of creators obviously do a lot of content around food, and it seems like an interesting play to take all the stuff that is trending on TikTok and you can actually go and actually eat it or order it in that sense. They're actually doing it with the same guys. There's a company called Virtual Dining Concepts. Same guys who Mr. Beast burgers with. So obviously there's a trend there for that company and how they're kind of tapping into creators. And first time I think a platform's kind of doing it this way. So super interesting. It's interesting to see how everyone's kind of finding different things to do. Like Netflix first with its entire merch and drop line, and now TikTok with restaurants.
I think it's awesome though, because I think Instagram is way, way, way behind the general creator monetization space. I think they're still stuck in all things advertising. And I think it's super interesting to see the experiments that TikTok is doing. I mean, let's see how this one turns out. Mr. Beast Burgers was a massive success. So if they can replicate the formula for a couple of their other creators, who knows what monetization on TikTok, Web3++ could possibly look like.
You said Instagram, and I think that's an interesting point, right? I speak to too many people who seem to feel like Instagram are they fading away? Are they losing the plot? They've made so many changes in the last 6 months to the platform and how they're working. Weirdly enough, because I spend a lot of time on it, it is my most used app across all the apps on my phone. I actually think they might actually have a great year going ahead. I think there's going to be some very interesting stuff happening on Instagram as they move into video with this half TikTok, half YouTube, half many things concept. Some of the features are interesting. I think it's going to be interesting for creators. So I would, but wait 1 second. That's what we're doing on this episode. What are we doing on this episode? We're doing predictions for 2022.
Yes, listeners, we're switching things up. So we're not going to give you our TLDR, 2 cents, hot takes on all things startup news. We, in fact, are going to stick our necks out and really call out the 3, predictions each that we think will dominate 2022. Are you ready, Varun?
Yes, but before that, we need to go in for a break. We'll be right back with Think Fast. We are not fast in going for breaks, but we'll be back fast.
Eventually, you'll see the end of your childhood,
Get accustomed to womanhood.
enjoy the experience of sisterhood,
Might get to wifehood
or not, choose motherhood.
or not. You'll learn to define your personhood,
Earn a livelihood,
change the neighborhood.
and get rid of the falsehood that life post academia is easy.
So join me, Natasha,
And me, Ayushi,
on a journey from station starting point
to station, what now?
next station, Pudin station, and hopefully Agla station, adulthood.
Fresh episodes out every Thursday.
Welcome back to Think Fast. We didn't go into the break fast, but we came back fast. I, as a kid, would not say breakfast. I still say breakfast most times. That is how I say. Maybe that's why the show's called Think Fast, because I say breakfast. And before I get weirder right now,
Yes,
It's
Varun,
time
what is
for
wrong
our-
with you, bhai?
it's time for our Think Fast segment today.
This year has
Okay.
really worn you out.
Yes, it has. Yes.
You have a question for me.
Yes. Z and Sony are merging. It's one of the most interesting mergers because it just creates this massive, Goliath, right? Like 75 TV channels, 2 streaming platforms. There's so much happening there. What do you think about that? What do you think about Z and Sony merging?
So, listeners, I just want to say I feel like Varun's questions are the questions that he wishes I would ask him. And I think he asks me these questions only so that he can give answers. So, Varun, why don't you answer yourself? What does he and Sony's matrimonial mean for the rest of us who don't consume anything on Z or Sony? Sorry, Z and Sony, please sponsor Think Fast the next time. But back to you, Varun.
You're partly true. Your assessment is correct because I find stuff which I find interesting and I ask you about them. Actually, the behind the scenes has been interesting because Z's obviously been this whole cycle of having Punit Goenka, who's the CEO, investors trying to push him out, and he's been trying to figure a way to get a deal in place so he can stick with it. This is almost like a great deal for him because while Sony takes 51% of the company, he actually becomes CEO. I think there's a brief cool off period, becomes the CEO for the combined entity. So super win-win for him. This is like succession, but there is success at the end of this succession. But
So, who in all of this is saying, go on?
but what do you think about this?
I have no opinion because I haven't seen either of those 2 platforms in a really, really long time. But as an ex-television person, I think it's needed, man. I don't know, what the shelf life of a lot of these platforms is, especially given the amount of money that's going into, first and foremost, internet penetration for 100 million users beyond, which is, happening on mobile phones, right? And I think the second, of course, is just the general world of OTT, original content being created. How much can these guys really keep up to pace with?
Yeah.
So I haven't been tracking the television space as such, but I'm assuming ad revenue has been dwindling for these guys for a bit. And of course, in this context, makes sense to come together. I think the question that I have for you, which would work great as a clarification, is who over here has the upper hand? Like, who has better programming content? Who has a better technology stack? Basically, who has leverage over here? Because I can't figure out what the leverage is.
So both the apps are not great. Let's be honest. I think the streaming play is going to be interesting for them because both the apps aren't great. Sony obviously has a better library of content of original. So they've had a bunch of hits in the recent past. ZEE5 is a lot more
Like
massy.
Ahat. Do you remember Ahat? Oh my
Sony
God,
had,
what channel was
Sony
Ahat
had
on?
Scam. Sony had
Yes,
Scam,
of course.
which
Yeah.
is obviously
Sony did that Scam, yeah. And
Yeah, they had
they
Scam.
had the rights to the Olympics as well.
and
that
they
was my
have
use case for
Shark
the
Tank as
platform.
well.
Ooh.
And many other things. But also for Z, they suddenly let Z become an international company in that sense. Like obviously they suddenly get the entire Sony leverage to take their content global just because of becoming a part of Sony. So I do think it's going to be interesting. And India still has a lot of TV left in it. It's just that maybe
No doubt.
first they move. But I think the streaming game and how they kind of work together is going to be interesting to see, and how they segregate between 2 streaming platforms, which I always find weird when one company has 2 streaming platforms. So that's the one thing which you look at. But this Think Fast question has gone into a long fast.
Moving on, ladies and gents, and Varun, we are number 3 on Apple Podcast marketing list. What? We're less than 4 episodes old, and we've already broken into top 10. What is your Think Fast take on that, man?
I would like to thank me.
Thank your
for
mom.
this.
Thank your bobblehead.
Yes, thank you. No, but I think it's great. I'm super excited. I think it's one of those things you get a little push and you worry about. I think you and I've had this chat many times before we start the show, saying we're going to go a little more irreverent with this. We're going to have a little more fun with it. Nobody's having fun with the business new content and stuff like that. So it's gone up there, and maybe people are listening. And if people are listening, tell your friends, make them listen. We want to get to number 1.
Yes, Queen. And beat
Yes.
Google, which is currently at number 1.
Google's at number. Anyway,
As per the screenshot he sent me.
fine,
Yes.
Google. Fine, Google. Okay, my next question to you. So that this question we move ahead from and we don't get into backslapping mode, which we already have done enough of. The first ever SMS was sold as an NFT by Vodafone. What do you think about that?
I'm going to steal your line, which is Vodafone. This gives Vodafone a reason to be back in the news. Where was this sold? Is this like India?
I'll actually
Which
should check that.
continent,
I haven't
country,
checked that
where?
one.
Who still uses SMSs? That's a real question. I'm being a tier one brat about it. I know many people use SMS,
OTPs.
guys. I'm
Where are you
joking.
going to get
Yes.
OTP if you don't have SMS?
Of course. OTP factory. Was
Yeah.
it an OTP? That's a real question. Was the NFT
That's
of
actually
an
true.
OTP?
What was the first SMS? I actually want to know what it was. I should actually check that. But whatever money they made from it, they're giving it to
Charity.
the United Nations Refugee Agency is what they're donating it to. So donate
All
it to
that
your
hoopla for United Nations. Sweet, sweet, sweet.
make the network better, please.
Lovely. I want to switch gears into one of my favorite topics with respect to all things startup. I think this, this topic generally requires a longer conversation. But in the essence of think fast, Varun, what's your take on Spinny's 12 million ESOP buyback for their employees?
So I think ESOP buybacks is always an interesting thing, right? I think it takes care of two things, and I think it's a smart move if you want to kind of have your cake and eat it too, which I think in many ways this becomes that, you're making sure that employees have certain level of, okay, they're getting some cash in hand. You're also making sure that as promoters, you are getting more shares back into your kitty. So I think it's a good move. I don't know enough about Spinny's business and how well it's been doing and stuff like that. So I can't comment on that. But just as a corporate move in that sense, I think it makes sense if either of those two is the reason why they've done it. What's your info?
And there really is there actually is a massive trend within startups, right? Whether it's Razorpay, Cred, Spinny, all of them have made headlines for the ESOP buybacks that they've done, and to a significant extent, holding equity and wealth through equity is really the penultimate form of wealth creation, right? You're getting paid for your effort, and you're getting paid for your work, and that equity is becoming common parlance, I think is excellent. 3-4 years ago, the general value associated with startup equity was pata nahi kab milega, will this actually amount to something tangible or not? But I think all of these buybacks, what they do for employees and for employers is help signal that there is this greater collective outcome that we guys can collectively meet, if everyone's focused on the same end goal. So I think generally in terms of, employee retention and just wealth creation, what this has the ability and the capability to do is phenomenal. I think ESOP buyback, especially now with companies, hitting unicorns and scaling, is actually something that we should spend a longer time talking about. But because this is Think Fast, do you have a question for me?
Before going to my question, we've been informed by our producer that the first ever text message was Merry Christmas. What timing? This episode is coming around that time.
Woohoo! Meant to be.
Did you say Jingle Bells OTP 5432?
OTP.
Which brings me to my next. This is the episode we both talk over each other entirely. And producers are like, guys, can you just stop talking over each other? But yes, my next question to you in the Think Fast segment is Spider-Man No Way Home had one of the largest opening weekends ever. And what do you think about it?
I just want to say Zendaya is stunning, and as is tradition, dear listeners, Varun continues to ask me questions I have no shits to give about. So Varun, why don't you eat up more airtime and tell me, sir, what happened in Spider-Man No Way Home, apart from you shouting at young, docile children?
So Spider-Man No Way Home, with giving away zero spoilers, if you I don't want to give anything away.
He dies.
But one of the best movies that Marvel has made ever.
Does he die?
Saying a lot. Yeah? I'm
Does
not
he
saying
die?
anything. I can't say anything about how anybody lives or dies or anything, but it is almost a defining point in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because after this, there's so much that is going to change because of what has happened in this movie. And that's all I can say. But also, it's a great movie. I can't remember, because I'm a huge superhero movie fan and generally geek boy and most of these things. A movie that ticked all the boxes in such a good way throughout and kind of did it right. And in almost I can't even believe what that director would have gone through in his head, because you can get this wrong in so many ways and super pressure. But I just totally love it. I'm just I'm still like, it's been a couple of days and I'm still like, oh my God, I just cannot get over it. I know people who've seen it 3 times in 3 days.
Do you know what I saw? I saw Decoupled, which is India's Sasta version of Curb Your Enthusiasm, and I have none of the
What?
same feelings that you do. But I want to ask you last question of the segment, which is your Think Fast on Shark Tank episode 1. So, based on the hearsay that I've heard on Twitter, or I've seen rather on Twitter, the Indian Shark Tank seems to be like a very like chicken tikka masala version of all things Shark Tank. But again, guys, this is just hearsay. I haven't seen the episode, so I don't know exactly what happened. What's your, 2 cents on Shark Tank India? Does it deliver?
So I'm halfway through the episode. I ran through half of it, and I didn't stop because I didn't want to watch more. I just had got a call and then I'll get back to it. I think maybe after this episode recording is done. But here's the thing, right? There have been versions of Shark Tank that has been tried in the past. If you look in the past, I think about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, there were a couple of versions of this that a bunch of business channels did try. And those were very straight-laced. Let's talk about it from a funding lens and everything else. There was no masala, no entertainment there. The thing is, what we don't realize is that in the US, Shark Tank led to being an entrepreneur, and everything around being a startup and valuations and funding and all become almost like something everybody knew and understood.
Mainstream, yeah.
Exactly. Made it mainstream, made it GEC, made it, but in our context, to do that, you have to make it this. You have to have, because ex-reality show producer that I am, if you don't do enough backstories, enough, you need to do that bit of masala for the larger Indian audience to really understand it. I think it will do a lot of good, to be honest. It's the best version of Shark Tank that I've seen out of India so far. And there were 2 before this, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But what I liked about this was, I don't think it was as overdone as it might have become. Like I, for instance, hated the first version of MasterChef India. Right? Eventually, I think they got it to a point where they had some balance. And this one, I think, will do a lot of good. I think in many ways, it will make someone sitting in a tier 2, tier 3 city, they want to do a startup, it'll just normalize that conversation. I think it'll do a lot of good. I actually thought it was a lot of fun. I think.
Which judge stands out the most? Like, is there someone who is truly
I'm very
spectacular?
biased about which judge stands out the most, because Aman from Boat is someone I've known for a long time. I think he's a lot of fun on the show. He's I have to ping him and tell him that he played to the camera exactly like how a shark
And if I had to put you on the spot, like who is supremely underwhelming?
I don't think anyone was underwhelming. I think that there were some who were playing to the camera, some who were just being themselves, who maybe weren't as sure.
So maybe their personality itself is boring. Got it. So whose personality is boring, Varun? That's the real question.
Who was amazing on the show is Ranvijay, though. Ranvijay is the host, and I'm always happy to see Ranvijay hosting anything.
Sweet.
I worked with him back in the day.
Yes.
But just before this becomes nostalgia, and our Think Fast segment is done, and people are like, guys, how was this Think Fast? What have you done in this segment? Guys, we're going to get to the meatiest part of this episode, which is predictions. We're going to have our interesting predictions for 2022. But before we do that, we're going for another break. Wow, we're doing many breaks today. So we go into that break and be right back with Think Fast. Have you ever wondered where the business world is headed? How the ways in which we create, market, and sell to consumers will evolve? Or if we'll ever go back to wearing pants while working? For answers to all of this and more, tune into Advertising is Dead with me, Varun Dugirala. Every Tuesday, as I talk to entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers from across business, media, marketing, and beyond. You can catch all episodes of Advertising is Dead on the IVM Podcasts website, app, or wherever you get your podcast from. Jingle bell, Think Fast is back again. Oh no. Okay, that's a terrible way to start this new segment, but we're back with Think Fast. And who's doing the first prediction? I am doing the first prediction?
Yes, sir, you are. What are you anticipating for 2022, Mr. Varun?
At the start of the episode, I joked about this being a MyGlam update show, but I definitely feel my prediction for 2022 is that MyGlam's going to get into fashion in a strong way. I think it's almost natural for them to go there. Just looking at all the categories they're going through, all the products they're kind of building out there. Also looking at what Nykaa did and how now there's a Myntra versus Nykaa thing in some sorts happening, just with how they're looking at personal care and fashion together. It just makes sense for MyGlam to get into it. So acquisitions will continue, I guess, in that space.
I don't know. I think MyGlam needs to get their beauty game right before they even, think of playing into another category. That's at least my 2 cents. But you never know. They seem to be acquiring a bunch of different players. But
Yeah.
why fashion? What makes you think that fashion? I mean, I get that it's a way of expanding a customer's basket size, but what is it about that category that you think blends really well, with beauty? Is it just, hey, female, let me sell you more shit, or?
No, I think in general, right, if you look at personal care and fashion, I think in many ways they kind of just work well together. The two categories are very complementary, right? I mean, in many ways, even from a D2C lens or from a store lens, you would buy both those things from the same store. Like I would do that, for instance. And I know, for instance, that the MyGlam founder has spoken about how he wants to get into, let's say, male grooming and products over there as well. So it feels almost natural, and I don't think it will require, as much shift of how they work as a larger company. So like, for instance, if they're getting into something totally parallel, like automobiles, for instance, like how, I don't even know how that would work.
It won't.
But this kind of feels complementary. Like you would walk into the same store and buy both products in many cases. Like even if you look at someone like a weird example, you walk into a Zara store, you will find that Zara has perfumes, etc. there as well. Many of these store adjoining things have worked, but it'll also be interesting because they can actually plug this in very smartly online, where you can actually, if you're buying one thing, you can say this is the look. Considering they have Pop Exo and they have Miss Malini, they can also do this whole look piece where single thing that you need for your look, from your personal care product to what you're wearing to shoes, everything else, you can have all of that. Almost like, okay, maybe you should add this to your cart, or have you tried this look out?
You're super bullish about MyGlam.
I'm generally bullish about someone who's kind of really change things up and kind of building it. So I have this weird analogy that I like to use, that you need to jump off a cliff and start stitching the parachute while you're falling down. I always find those kind of companies and founders very interesting, because I'm like, you're really betting the horse on this, right? You're saying, okay, I'm going to do this way. I'm going to operate it at this speed. It can fail, but it can also go really quickly, right? So I'm always intrigued by these stories, because I think there's always going to be a lot of action at all times, and who doesn't like a lot of action?
Speaking
Rohit
of,
Shetty does.
oh God, Rohit Shetty is back on this episode.
Yes.
Speaking of action, I think where the action is going to happen is actually in home and kitchen. I think this is a massive opportunity and a massive segment, which has kind of been like the underdog, so to speak, specifically from an e-com lens, right? So until now, e-com, obviously the genesis of it was focused on electronics, and then you switch gears into fashion thanks to, the Mintras, etc. of the world, and then Amazon obviously spending significantly in fashion, Flipkart having its own sort of play. Then gears sort of shifted to all things grocery, and you had, Big Basket and the likes grabbing headlines, grabbing a shit ton of VC money, and we've seen exits play out over there. I think the one underdog over here has been home and kitchen as a segment, and if we had to like double tap into this segment, right? What makes it super interesting is it's been dominated by 3 types of businesses. One is your mattresses business, which is your Wakefit and the likes, and even those have been, real sort of like breakout companies to a significant extent. Wakefit, Duroflex, and a few others. There's Sleepy Cat, which is this new like insurgent company that's interesting in this space. There's furniture, and of course you had, Urban Ladder, which was acquired by Reliance, and then you have Pepper Fry, which is apparently supposed to be IPOing next year, if I'm not mistaken. And then your third sort of niche that you've got within home and kitchen has been platforms like LiveSpace and HomeLane that have, sort of built this idea of interior design plus modular decor space, which was actually a very interesting way to approach the category, because you essentially go use case first, right? So the use case is the use case of buying home specifically, not necessarily decorative items, is when you're moving into a new place. And I think they approach the problem statement the right way, and then of course they've built on and on from there. The reason why I'm bullish on home and kitchen is multiple different things. I think the moment that beauty had about 8 to 10 odd years ago was contingent on 4 things, right? One is there was this massive tailwind. So for example, COVID has created a sudden interest in all things home, because now people are stuck at home. You have your offices. I know it may be a tier 1, tier 2 and a generally like Sec A plus kind of phenomena, but you've got that going on, right? The second is, unlike fashion, home is actually a category that has been dominated by unbranded brands. So if I had to ask you, name me bedsheet brands, right? You'd name, okay, Wellspun Spaces. You may have another company like in Delhi, for example, we have Jagdish Stores, which is very popular, but you'd run out of names thereafter, right? Similarly, furniture, etc. The third big thing that's happening in this space is ripples of content. And I think wherever content goes, that's really where even the sector growth comes from. So for example, if you look at top Netflix shows this year, they've included shows like Selling Sunset, and this is for an Indian user, Selling Sunset, June
Yeah.
Motel, Studio McGee show on Netflix. All of these have been home and decor related. And even if you spend time on Pinterest and Instagram, again, like Indian representations of these two accounts, you see home really building up. And finally, and most importantly, you've got the 300-pound gorilla in the room, which is IKEA, right? And IKEA has suddenly created this, influx of interest in furniture and how do I do up my house, etc., etc. So I think from a market perspective, it's a massive, massive, massive opportunity. The furniture and home market in India apparently stands at close to about $16 billion and is expected to reach about $40 billion by FY26, growing at a CAGR of about 25%. Even from an e-commerce perspective, if you talk to if you look at where platforms like Amazon, Flipkart, etc. really spending money, it is on building up supply within these categories. I think there's a huge opportunity of creating private labels within this category, which unfortunately has not existed in categories like beauty and fashion, because both of them are very brand heavy and brand led, and because it's in the unbranded space. What that essentially means is you don't have to do shit like deep discounting to get orders. You have the ability to leverage design and different audience profiles and audience demographics and create something fairly interesting for the customer. So I am very, very bullish on home and kitchen. I think we're going to see many, many more companies. You've already seen a company like Nest Asia raise $4 million from Stellaris. And I think this is a space to watch out for in 2022. It's going to be the beauty of 2022.
I just have one worry about it. Right? Just see what happened to Urban Ladder in many ways. And that sometimes, Urban Ladder was a brand which I remember when it first came out, everyone's really bullish about it. And, it hasn't really been able to. I'm saying, where can this kind of go wrong? I mean, if I'm a startup today, and that's what, while you're talking, I was just thinking about the fact that there have been players, right? You had a Pepper Fries and Urban Ladders coming in. But do you think it's only COVID? Has the basic, or is it almost the right time for the market to open up to this and everyone's kind of going to get into the action? Because that's the one big question I have.
I think one is, a lot of these guys started digital first, but what they realized is that the approach needs to be omni. So I think approach from day one. So for example, like IKEA in India, right, has played the omni game from day one, the omni channel game from day one. So obviously they don't deliver pan India, and because I'm in Delhi, I haven't had a chance to, use their online delivery at all. But
I have.
Yeah,
if you're watching this on video, guys, the rack behind is IKEA.
Lovely.
Which
you ordered online?
Terribly put it together. Ordered online, got it, put it together in a very bad way. If it doesn't have the support of the pillar behind there, that thing will fall down at some point.
But keeping your lack of assembly skills aside, I think number one is, the folks who've gone omni from day one have really, had like a long-term way of building out the game. I think the second is, unfortunately, people look at home as furniture and mattresses and, doing up your house, right? And yes, 100%, those are large segments, but I actually think where the delta is going to come from is things like bed sheets, dude. I mean, bed sheets, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's a 1,500 crore category on Amazon. Again, if I'm wrong, please at me on Twitter. It's simple shit like bed sheets, rugs, cushions, ceramics, bro, like kitchenware. If you had to buy something as simple as a chopping board, right? Who are the brands that you think of? There's literally no brand that comes to mind. Plates, right? Corel has literally been the only, branded sort of player, or maybe to some extent home center. And they seem to be putting a lot of effort into rejigging their design. We spoke about Fab India in the last episode. But all of these subcategories of ceramics, kitchenware, kitchen appliances, I think even appliances has a super interesting opportunity for, new brands to emerge. And and basic shit like bed sheets, doormats, your quick consumption category. So I think what happened to fashion about 20 years ago, where fashion went from couture to fast, I think that's what's happening in home right now, where of course you will spend a chunk of your money in things like sofas, dining table, etc., etc. But the longevity of spends actually comes from things like decorative items. And I think here's where content will play a big role, because it's in content where that inspiration, aspiration, and that sense of design comes from. I think another thing with home, and then after that, I swear on my life, I will shut up, is I think home is a category where people are generally very insecure about their own taste. And they're insecure about their own taste because it isn't a category for which there is enough content that's been created where you can say, oh, bhai, maine is pe dekha tha, to mujh pe bhi theek lagega because I have the same, dimensions as you. Every home is different. So yeah, I am super, super bullish on this. And actually, I mean, I'm fully biased because I feel like content can play a big role in opening up all things home. But that's it. I'm going to shut up. Your turn.
No, I agree with you on the content part, right? And you mentioned Pinterest earlier. And if you go to Pinterest and they did this entire creator program, they've been doing it slowly in India. But if you go through all the creators, you'll see largely they will have a focus. I think a big chunk is overall on home. And I think that's almost a great way to look at it. Also, this interestingly leads up to my second prediction. So that India will have its first blowout creator-led brand. We've had a lot of merch, we've had a lot of that stuff, but I'm talking like legitimate brand. And why I said it's interesting that you're going from home to this is, you always said celebrities do this, right? So you had Ekta Kapoor recently, for instance, launch her brand, which is entirely home focused, right? So everything. So which I find very interesting because you obviously associate her with a certain kind of home, and if you go broad demographic, I think it's an interesting play for her to get into. But more on the creator side, you are seeing creators become and kind of hold the same space as celebrities now. We're kind of coming to that point where it's maturing as a space. They obviously have built a following. They're realizing that you can't just have these just like add brand-led pieces to sustain. So they're getting into products. It's been digital so far. No one's been super successful in physical, but it's starting now. Why I'm so bullish about this happening is that it's a great time, because every single creator I've spoken to in recent times is thinking either like an artist, saying, okay, this is my gateway to do, let's say, movies, do larger pieces of content, like what a Bhuvan did with Dindora, or what a Prajakta is doing by now being in a Bollywood movie with like a Varun Dhawan and a Kiara Advani and everybody else.
What?
But
Prajakta is in a Bollywood movie?
Yeah,
Whoa.
She's in a Bollywood movie. Anil Kapoor, Varun Dhawan, Kiara Advani.
Good on her, man.
Co-starring. So yeah, so it's exciting, right? So that's one side. And the other side, you have, obviously Nick has done this, and I'm sure there are many more kind of coming up. And especially with social
kind
commerce.
of done this with Nykaa and her partnership on perfumes and lipsticks. Yeah, she's actually been pretty ahead of the curve in terms of creator monetization.
I totally agree. Even but I'm talking pure play creator, like pure play, like, okay, I'm a content creator. I've been creating stuff on Instagram, creating stuff on YouTube. Can I go out and sell products? I think that's actually where, because I'm just looking at the West, and we spoke about Mr. Beast Burger earlier. There's Emma Chamberlain in the US, who in all her videos kind of always talks about coffee or is drinking coffee. So she started her own coffee brand and it's been doing really well. I'm super excited. I think this is going to happen this year. It's the right time. They've all built their media. And I think the ecosystem's ready for it. It's an economy now.
So if I had to put you on the spot and ask you who are like the, one or two creators most poised to actually do something meaningful vis-a-vis like brand creation, and not just in terms of their audience or their clout, but in terms of just their like knack of what it is that consumers want, who would you bet your money on? Randeep? Just kidding.
I would actually look at food creators. I think food creators is where it might happen. If you're looking at a chef who's a food creator, or if you're looking at, I'm also kind of biased because I've seen what Pooja Dhingra has been able to do, just like by putting on both lenses on. Let's say a pure play food creator, if they start creating everything from, we spoke about, can they almost create all the stuff you have in the kitchen, right? From utensils to even electronics. That could be a great play.
You're seeing that happen. There's this really cool food blogger, recipe creator. Her name's Archana's Kitchen. She actually launched her own brand of like cake premixes and cookie premixes and the likes. Again, literally sold under the name of Archana's Kitchen. Obviously, I may not know what the numbers are, but you're seeing, early signs of that happen.
Yeah. I don't know if fashion will do it. And I'm unsure if somebody, let's say, will get into the personal case space, etc. You obviously need to be as large as, let's say, a Masaba to be able to do that one.
Yeah.
But I think areas like food, apparel still might be a thing, though. I want to see how Nick's brand does, because I think he's one of the first ones to kind of get into it with this. You only had like people like Hrithik Roshan do HRX, or who else has done something like this?
Deepika
Katrina with
Padukone,
obviously.
yeah, All About You, her tie-up with Myntra.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. Most of them have been,
Alia with her kids brand.
yeah. Most of them have been in like alliance with current e-com platform or like the Ditya Birlas of
Yeah.
the group. But it'll be interesting to see if any of these folks are
I think
able
the
to get.
specialized ones will do well immediately, right? Let's say like you said, there's home, there is food. You might have someone actually do it. Maybe you and I can we can create our own mics. We'll buy our mics. Sorry, what do you
Of
think?
course, because our sound quality is so good thanks to Vishnu and everyone else who works on this piece. No, but you're bullish on creators breaking out and making their own brands. The platform I am like really, really bullish on is LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn's
Your
been like
prediction
this.
next one.
This is my next prediction, guys. LinkedIn has been this like sweet little underdog where people post, motivation messages, and Ankur Warikoo has his like playground, and, Shark Tank does its thing. But I really, really think LinkedIn is going to be the next breakout platform. I believe it's where influencer dollar growth will also come from. Shark Tank has officially made entrepreneurs an influencer, which hasn't happened at a national stage before. And if you think about it, which platform is ready to light a match to this and really make it a gigantic fire, right? Like it's LinkedIn. I think the good thing about LinkedIn right now is they're investing money in original content. They're partnering very closely with creators. You're a part of the LinkedIn Creator Network,
I'm part of the
right?
program as well.
So
Yeah.
talk about that. What are they doing as a part of this?
It's interesting that they've basically built this team very recently, and they've just been rolling it out globally, and so they kind of saying, okay, how can we kind of pick a bunch of people and see what kind of content they can create online and put out there. But what they've actually been doing is kind of they're starting off with the fundamentals, saying, okay, this is the stuff which you're doing. Let's talk about what else you can do. Let's discuss how else we can kind of help you. What kind of additional data, maybe in some sense of the word. They send us like consistent emails on stuff that's happening across the platform, things that we kind of latch onto. So it's almost like a creator program. They're almost building a support system for any of us to have who has any questions to kind of reach out to them. Also for them to constantly feed us information. They also have a newsletter feature now, which if you are part of the program or you unlock that, you can do that. So that's like, for instance, that's something which I'm talking to them about. I have a newsletter saying, can you move that onto LinkedIn, or just like have the same thing also coexist here? And they also are interestingly saying go beyond the plain Jane LinkedIn, which you assume is only blue collar. Being a professional doesn't mean you can't share something which is personal, which is not like you don't suddenly become Instagram.
Yeah.
But you can actually go a lot more personal. I think that's interesting. I agree with you. LinkedIn, there's so much potential about what that can do, because I still don't see enough people saying stupid stuff on LinkedIn. There is obviously are always going to be people saying stupid stuff on social platforms, but
and that's the thing with
people
LinkedIn,
are
right?
still
Like,
worried about
because your face is associated with your name, and you have to like literally register yourself on LinkedIn, unlike Facebook.
And it's your job, you're a professional.
Exactly. And I think because there's this like underwriting of reputation when you sign on to the platform, you're responsible for your own reputation. I think there's much more on the line for people, which in its weird way also elicits the best kind of behavior, right? So you've got folks focusing more on, I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of the content is nauseating, right? You've got people giving all sorts of rubbish like life advice and career
Stop
advice.
calling yourselves thought leaders.
Please stop calling yourself thought leaders. But basically, like I think LinkedIn has all the right pieces. Now it's more about how it comes together. And I think especially in a country like India, where a lot of this content is unavailable or has been unavailable for a significant amount of time, LinkedIn being like a evangelist of all of this, right? Of content around skill development, leadership, business content, right? I mean, just think about how few podcasts or even newsletters and the likes exist that cover things like startups or case studies or deep dives on businesses. So I think if leveraged correctly and if they have the right like seeding mechanism, LinkedIn can really crush it. And most importantly, I don't know if you're seeing this at the Glitch, but at LBP we're seeing a lot of our large corporate brands want to put money behind LinkedIn influencers?
So LinkedIn is actually a client of ours. We've been working with LinkedIn for many years now. So the only thing which I would actually say is that, and that's my only worry point with this, is that while they're doing it, it's a step in the right direction. The platform needs to bring in a lot more creator-friendly pieces there to put content out there. You still, like for me, for instance, as a creator, I've always repurposed stuff I've put somewhere else and put it on LinkedIn. But do I have enough creation tools on the platform itself is something which I can't see. And it's like, it's not simple to find how many followers someone has. You have to go into their profile and do all that stuff. Can you do more things beyond what you can do right now? I think the simplification is where the key is going to be. If they simplify that fast enough, so much you can do, and it's a legit platform. It's not a platform where you will just like you said, like it is your CV. That's what you send people as your CV when you want a job. So, while I've also heard enough stories of people who will send random DMs on LinkedIn, but you can't help those people. That is how they are. But moving beyond that, I think I'm bullish about this one as well, especially in this space, because it's the most exciting because we all work, we all have careers, we all want to be we all have to be on LinkedIn. So it makes sense for them to do this.
For sure. What is your third prediction?
There is an area I'm obsessed about, which I talk about very often, which is fitness. I am super bullish on health, wellness, fitness being this scaled up space in the next year. But also because if you see, like you spoke about what Cult Fit has done recently with all the acquisitions, everything else, we're hitting that point where it is going to go out from being just a gym thing, or like, you're just buying ingestibles separately and stuff like that. But I think it's all going to come together. You're going to have mega brands which focus on this from a broader sense. I think that point of time is now. And I'm also saying this because as someone who has tried to consume every single product out there in this space, I'm just seeing that it's very scattered right now. There's some people who are doing the food part, some people are doing the wellness part, someone's doing fitness. Someone like a Cult Fit could actually bring that all together if they do it right. They've gotten into food as well in recent times. They're now getting into the hardware part of it. So I'm super bullish on this segment and how this segment can actually create so much more, because honestly, it's super scattered and there are a lot of much tinier players out there and people are looking for options. I've seen too many people look for options.
So if I had to ask you, like if you had to name drop and give me your current favorite brands that are in the health and wellness space, who could you call out to?
I think Man Matters is very interesting. Their product line is great. It's just, I've used their products. Like I use their gummies and just a range of products and how that kind of comes through. They're not boner meds. I use their biotin gummies to keep my hair nice and lush, and I use their apple cider vinegar gummies to keep that tummy nice and flat. For anybody who wants to know about my gummy schedule.
And your bowel movements.
But no boner meds yet. Okay. Not that old yet.
Sorry. Okay. So Man Matters, I distracted you. No, Man Matters is great brand.
Cult Fit, I'm interested. I have a feeling Cult Fit will become that house of brands. Can they become the My Glam Nykaa of this space? They already are. But I don't see anybody else who's as big a player. And I think it's an opportunity for someone to kind of step in and really become that. To kind of bring it all together. So I don't know. I don't know if it'll be someone like a Man Matters who'll try to get into this space. But it's a massive opportunity. I still don't get why someone like a Muscle Blaze who's doing, let's say, protein powders and has really scaled up as a brand doesn't think about, okay, why don't you also have a lot more content that comes into this side? You have someone like a Ranveer Singh who has, what's it, Big something protein? I forget what the name, something big. So they have a lot of these random ones, right? The one company that actually has kind of had an interesting journey in recent times, and I'm drawing a blank, right, is Fast Up, right?
Fast Up
has been interesting. Fast Up, which and I use their vitamin effervescent tablets all the time.
Anything else you want to disclose, Varun? Anything else?
And so they've got into proteins and all that stuff recently. So they're going beyond just the medicinal ones to go into fitness and protein. So yeah,
there's lots, man.
I'm
There's
super excited about this space
as well. Kapiva's done really interesting stuff within the, more like Ayurvedic-ish space. And of course, you've got all of your gummies, like power gummies and the likes that have absolutely, lost it and are in the best possible way and are coming up with all things new and interesting. I have a quick follow-on question over here. What is your take on one, wearables, and the second is also hardware in health and wellness? So for example, like I mentioned, Cult Fit's been acquiring treadmill brands and bike brands, and you've got Peloton obviously getting in capital markets in the US. But what's your take on this treadmill plus bike plus more like hardware sort of side of things?
Goki's been interesting if I
Yeah.
pronounce the company right. They've been obviously been building that up for a long time. That's a very interesting company to look at. He's been focusing on building that out over time. I've also spoken to a bunch of startups who are almost figuring ways to do this home workout piece a lot better. While some people are trying to go back to the gyms, etc. Like I work out half gym, half at home. They're coming up with ways to not just have because honestly, a lot of people will send you a PDF with the link on it, and you click on the link and you watch it on YouTube and you go back and do it, which is painful to follow. But people are coming up with, let's say, smart mirrors where, for instance, it will track your body movement and tell you if your form is right.
There's Ultra Human, which has that cyborg
the glucose
army
monitor,
thing,
right?
Correct, yeah.
Ultraman is a fabulous company to talk about, because just how they built it, the kind of people they've got on board feels very international. Doesn't feel, you would not second guess the fact that this is a truly international company. I actually know that Shiladitya, who hosts another IVM podcast, Shunya One, has that glucose piece on. I was actually asking him about it. I was considering it. I'm still not committed to putting a glucose monitor on myself. I might just do that in 2022. But Ultraman's another company to really look at. I think they're super interesting.
And this year you also obviously had Healthify that picked up a check of $75 million from Khosla Ventures. So you're right, man. Across the board, a lot of interesting things could come up in the health and wellness space.
Mega brands.
My last prediction is continuing from 2021. I feel that you can expect massive M&As in the coming year. Two industries that I'd bet on for consolidations. First is fintech, and the second one is consumer brands and related. So when I say related, I mean think enablers, platforms, brands, etc. coming together. I think House of Brands will be a feature, not a product. I think any company that has raised a significant amount of money and is at a significant revenue, their ways of unlocking scale will really be exemplified in them being able to acquire great talent, great companies with steady revenues, which you're obviously seeing happen left, right, and center towards the latter half of this year. But I think House of Brands will be a feature, not a product. The reason why I also put fintech in the two categories that I think, so for example, if EdTech was the M&A beast of 2021, the two industries that I see this happening in is fintech and consumer brands. The reason I'm bringing up fintech is because there's a lot of money that has been deployed into everything from neobanks to trading and investing platforms to, again, house of brands, quote unquote, within fintech, right? The truth is all of them are going after the same type of customer at the end of the day. Even within fintech, you've got BNPL players who, again, customer differentiation is limited. Even product differentiation is difficult to, tell if you just had to open, one platform and compare it to the other. So these are the two spaces where I see M&As happening. In fact, there was a major Bain report that came out today, which all of our listeners listening in should check this out. Indian M&A action is apparently the highest it has ever been in a considerable amount of time. And what's really interesting is there are a lot of first-time buyers and first-time acquirers that have sort of, come in to join the action. So check out that Bain report on mergers and acquisitions. And obviously they've, very nicely articulated 7 themes that they expect in 2022. But the two categories that I'd look at is fintech, consumer brands, and consumer brand enablers plus related.
I actually think there's another category which we don't talk about enough, which could be interesting from the M&A, is that I think the media space is going to have more. I know we spoke about Z and Sony in the beginning. I think we're going to have a lot more of that happening there, because we obviously have traditional players across categories. You have obviously the print guys on one side. You have you have television between, and now you have all the streaming ones. Plus there's audio, and there's a bunch of stuff happening there across the platforms. Media is going to also have a bunch of those, I feel, this year. I'm just adding one more into your prediction.
Awesome. So, ladies and gents, I think this covers up our 6 predictions for 2022. Yes. We will hold ourselves accountable and keep checking in on whether these predictions are shaping up or not. We haven't done anything overly dramatic, Scott Galloway saying Twitter is going to be acquired by Square, or Peloton is going to be acquired by Amazon or Apple, or whatever else it is that he's...
Varun's going to put up a topless photo in 2022. How about that?
On Jan 1st of 2022, ladies and gents.
Not yet. Before I turn 40, I will put up a topless photo. How about that for a prediction?
Oh my God, we cannot wait. Guess who's going to rip on that topless photo? Me. Number one. That covers our prediction segment. Now we get into all things that we're hopeful for and our recommendations. Yes. And good on us, Varun. We stuck to time this time around.
Yeah, it's time. But before we do that, I think we need to go for one more break. Let's do one more break. And our producer's like, guys, there was no break, but we're going for
Are you looking for finance products and services that can enhance your personal finance experience? Are you looking for a space to talk about your financial product or service? And are you looking for a crisp talk show where the conversation is all about money? Well, your search ends here. Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta and I'm host of the Paisa podcast, and I invite you for the conversation about your personal finance on each Monday on the IVM Podcasts app or the website or on any podcast streaming platforms. See you folks.
Okay, welcome back. Think fast. We've had lots of interesting predictions. I have spoken about taking my shirt off in 2022. What are you hopeful for this year?
I am hopeful that your last prediction is incorrect and you don't take off your shirt and hurt our eyes, Varun. Just kidding, just kidding. You do you. But no, but jokes aside, I think what am I hopeful for, man? This year's been really weird. I don't know about you, but it's been, equal parts, survival, equal parts, like just absolutely traumatic. Delhi obviously got the worst end of the second wave. I don't think I've had to go for as many cremations in the past 31 years of my life as I have gone in this year. It's just been, the worst on so many fronts. But I think if I have to be hopeful about anything at all, I would say in the grander scheme of things, I'm just hopeful about humans. I know it's difficult to be hopeful about humans when you open, Times of India and just generally read the barrage of rubbish that people are up to on a daily basis. But
you read a newspaper?
I don't, but I do consume Twitter. And as per Twitter, we're all in a shithole, and there's always more crap coming up. But I think just humankind's capability of powering through vaccines or not is really, really, it's just remarkable, right? I'm hopeful for 2022 being a little gentler, having lesser horrible surprises. If I had to switch gears and not be like meta and emotional about this, what I would say, what I'm hopeful for is I hope Instagram gets its shit together, because I think as a platform, it's just, completely lacking in what one would hope content sharing / content creation platform does. I had said this recently, but Instagram has just perpetrated the wrong kind of behavior. I think there's too many people obsessed with being influencers and not enough people creating. And if you just think about it, right, like that example that you gave me of Mr. Beast spending $3.5 million on his Squid Game set, and you compare it to an average Instagram influencer with over 50,000 followers, they get paid stupid fucking amounts of money for standing next to a car or posting a picture in an outfit. Like, there's no ROI on that content. There is no ROI. Like, I'd be okay with that, but at least post, at least create, right? Like, everyone's too obsessed with influencing and not creating. And I think that's why YouTube has an edge. So keeping the, more like meta things aside, what I'm hopeful for and I hope happens is Instagram, which was, truly a first mover in a lot of ways, that they get their shit together and actually build a platform for creators instead of, this obsession with like selfies and influencing and SpawnCon, which is what they've become famous for. What about you, man?
I'm going to join you in your first hope, which is that hopeful for humans, always hopeful for humans. I do think that 2020 is going to be a year where, because honestly, 2020 was like a shock. 2021 kind of was almost a year where a lot of us had time to almost in some form or the other, took time to take a pause, kind of figure out where we headed and everything else. 2022 is going to have a lot of action, and I'm hopeful for that action being good, just in terms of not just repeating whatever we were doing before 2020, if we can kind of change things around. So that I'm definitely joining what you're saying. I've always been bullish on audio and podcasts. I continue to be bullish on audio and podcasts. I think 2022 is going to be when monetization is actually going to be one of the big things in podcasts, because, and I'll tell you why I'm bullish. Programmatic is still not fully come out. The day programmatic actually comes out, and it started to roll out in many countries, right? In the States, it's already out there. Spotify acquired Megaphone, which has now become it's basically their YouTube ad network for audio in that sense. So as that rolls out, every single episode, you can continue to monetize it, and not just on the day, on the week it comes out or whatever else, right? You can monetize in the past. So suddenly all your inventory can make money. Video is going to be a thing and all that stuff. So I'm so bullish for that reason. I also feel audio is having a very interesting effect on consumers, because podcasters are also kind of becoming mainstream in terms of creators. You're no longer indie in any form. I think the last 2 years has really done that.
Yeah.
So now is the time to actually bring in the monetization machine into it, really scale that out. And we might not necessarily have to do video for everything. We might just do video and audio. And the audio might actually be the cherry on top.
Absolutely, man. And there's a really good Spotify article on in the Atlantic. What was that interview with Daniel Ek? We'll add it in.
Oh.
I don't think it was the information because I could access it and I don't subscribe to the information. But we'll send you the link either on Twitter or as a part of show notes, dear listeners, because it's a really, really good article on how the Spotify team is thinking about, building out audio as a medium and also investing heavily in audio as a medium. But good prediction, Varun. I hope your prediction comes true. / what you're hopeful for comes true.
Money in 2020. Money and hope in 2022.
Oh, have you heard that song, by the way, Money Can't Buy You Class by Real Housewives of New York? Luann. You haven't? It is the best song ever.
Can I give you a recommendation for anyone who wants to have like random fun this New Year's Eve? Go to an Instagram account called Himesh Doing Things. Okay. This person has taken every single post of Himesh Reshammiya on Instagram, but he or she captions it with the funniest captions. I will not say anything more. Just go. It's called Himesh Doing Things. You can imagine that it has many interesting pieces there. It is hilarious. And the funny part is all the videos are actually from Himesh's Instagram account. This person has just taken them and added captions. It is super fun. So
wow.
Have some fun this New Year's Eve, guys. Bombay's got his winter.
Oh man.
And Delhi has been freezing.
You're wearing a t-shirt. I'm wearing like 4 layers, sitting on top of my heater, like have like 30 lights on so I don't like freeze during this recording. But by the way, I have a quick recommendation before we wind up. There's this really good book. I haven't had a chance to read it yet because I'm still waiting for Amazon to make my delivery because it's not available in any independent bookstores. Just adding that over there because I usually shop from independent bookstores. But the book is called Becoming Trader Joe. It's by Joe Colomb, if I got his name correct. But basically, Trader Joe's is just this like exceptional retail model and retail platform. Not platform, but it's a network of offline stores in the US, and everything is, private label, and they apparently make the most amount of money per square foot, even compared to the Walmarts of the world.
Wow.
And fascinating story of, being focused on unit economics and really using service as a differentiator and quality of products as a differentiator. There's this excellent article also in the Atlantic about Trader Joe and their story. But that book reaches me on the 25th. So Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's to me, who's basically going to spend all of her vacation in finishing this book. So that's me, Varun.
And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you who's watching, listening in. From me and Tony Stark, who Sujata Things looks like Himesh Reshammiya. If you're watching this in video, I have a bobblehead which is of Tony Stark, and Sujata Things, it is Himesh Reshammiya. Hence, Himesh Doing Things is a thing.
Oh man, Happy New Year, listeners. Thank you for listening to us and making us number 3. Now make us number 1. Make us number 1. Yes. No, jokes aside. Merry Christmas, folks. And Happy New Year.
Toodles.
My poodles.
I know why I say toodles. I was saying toodles is a fun thing to say. Ting fast. Jingle bell, ting fast, jingle bells. That did not make any sense. Okay, bye guys.
Bye, Varun.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Agla Station Adulthood, Ritash and Ayushi speak to Marissa Mays. She is the curator of No More Lonely Friends. They discuss toxic friendships and pandemic loneliness. Also, do check out Probation Se Promotion Tak with Abhinav Trivedi. He will help you make your CV stand out when you're looking for a job. On Paisa Vaisa, Anupam and Soumya Shah, co-founder of Tarakki, discuss what the current trends are in the wealth management industry. On All Things Policy, the folks from the Takshashila Institute shed light on the implication of China's infrastructure building in Tibet. And on Tere Mere Raste, Keshav tells us about a small village in the Himalayas called Tirugi Narayan. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. We'd also really appreciate any ratings or reviews you can give us on any of the platforms that we're listening on, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or IVM Podcast App. Wherever you're listening, do let us know that you are listening. I'd also like to remind you all that we have a number of YouTube channels where a number of shows are available. You can go to ivmpodcast.com/YouTube to check out what channels we have. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Cred, Bank of Baroda, CoinSwitch, Kuber, and Intel. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Don't you think that if everyone around you is getting smart, you better be smarter? Hey there, I'm the traveling professor Siddharth Deshmukh, and I'm back with season 2 of my podcast to make you smarter. Smarter with Sid. What's this season's focus about? Well, it's about 10-minute nuggets that will make you stand out at work. It's time to go from smart to smarter. Tune in every Tuesday and Thursday and become smarter with Sid.